Chavre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. As usual, since the war started, we start with Staka, Gdelet Staka, Shemakarevis Hagula, Mashiach should come now. Then we go to Tefillah, a pasuk from prayer. Lately we've said the psukim from Kapitel Chav Zayin, and actually today's thought is going to be a word from the Rebbe on Kapitel Chav Zayin, and we'll hopefully connect it to the Pasha Shuva. Kapitel Chav Zayin, which we say every single day from Rosh Chodesh Elul till Shana Rabbah, which means, as we spoke last week about Acha Shalti, that means these are verses that we have to inculcate, engrave in our hearts and minds in the high holidays, in the festivals of Tishrei, and in the whole preparation. So that means that these are very, very fundamental, all-encompassing precepts and concepts and themes that we have to think about. So how does Kapitel Chav Zayin start? David HaMelech said, David Adinoi Oidi V'Yishi Mimi Iro Adinoi Mois Chayai Mimi Evchod. Hashem is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Hashem is the stronghold of my life. From who shall I be frightened? So here the Rebbe asks a couple of questions. Why does it have to say Hashem's name twice? He could have just said David, Hashem oiri v'yishi mimi ira, u'mois chayim mimi evchad. Why does it have to say Hashem's name twice? Also, what's the difference between ira and evchad? What's the difference between when you say that from whom shall I fear and from whom shall I be frightened? Why is it said? Why is it different words, and what is it trying to tell us? So the Rebbe is going to explain that this pasuk is actually talking about three situations. But before we start, let's speak about something that I've mentioned already before, and if I may humbly suggest, I'm going to say it again because I believe people like simonim, like something which could be put into one sentence, or labels or categories, and you can remember it, and I think this will help you in life, and as it helped me. I believe everything that you have to know about life and Yiddishkeit boils down to the three E's: enlightenment, empathy, and empowerment. Now this applies to a Yid, to a Jew, and to a non-Jew. Because let's talk about enlightenment. You have to know who you are. You have to be enlightened to what is your identity, what is your heritage, what is your culture, what is your purpose in life, what is your mission. That means enlightenment. Empathy means being able to get along in society in a truthful, honest way, the way God meant us to get along with each other, means you must have empathy. And then there's empowerment, that you have to believe that you are given whatever you need to accomplish whatever your mission on this planet Earth is. So it applies to every single person, and you can also explain how this is the whole Seder Shtalshalis, the order of descent of the cosmic spiritual realms. Enlightenment, you could say, is Chabad. Empathy is Chagas. Chesed Gvur Tferes. And empowerment, you could say, is Nihi Netzach Yisod. You could also say empowerment is Kesed, but we're not going to give the whole lecture today. In general, I just want to say that with these, and this also applies, if you're dealing with a person, imagine every person that crossed your path, you'd think to yourself, either I should bring him enlightenment, add something to his life, a clarification. We're living in the age of confusion. Today, all the problems with moral superiority, moral equivalence, etc., etc. It's insane what's going on in the world today. So it all starts with enlightenment. Have clarity. So if you see another person, bring him enlightenment. If you don't bring him enlightenment, show him some empathy. And if you're not showing him some empathy, at least give him empowerment to be able to continue on his way successfully, etc., etc. Anyways, so now let's get back to this pasuk. First of all, the pasuk is telling us that we're talking in the month of Shuva. Elul is the time of Shuva. Now when there says you made Shuva, it's Shabbos Shuva. So how does a person come to a situation where he must do tshuva? In addition to the higher meanings of tshuva. But in the simple sense, you did something wrong, you made a mistake. So, the first thing is, you're talking to Hashem and you say, L'David Hashem Oiri, which means Hashem is my light. In other words, there's two situations. One situation is, you don't know how to discern between what's wrong and what's right. You don't know how to distinguish between what's darkness and what's light. You don't know what's up, you don't know what's down. So first we have to come to the conclusion, what's right and what's wrong? What's morals? What's ethics? What are the ethics? What is the morality? So that's Pshat, L'David Hashem Oiri. Number one, Hashem should be my light, so I should know what's right and what's wrong. And that'll prevent many people from doing the wrong thing. Because once you know it's the right thing, you'll try to do the right thing. But then there's another category of people that even after they know that it's the right thing, we have another problem. Not always you end up doing the right thing. Sometimes you have a weaker nefesh habahamis, you have a strong yetzer hara, and there's strong temptations, or you have addictions, God forbid, you have a problem. And in such a case, it's not only about L'David Hashem Oiri, that's not enough, that Hashem is your light, but Vayeilech, He has to be your help. You need intervention, like we say in addiction cases. So L'David Hashem Oiri Vayeilech is talking about two, let's repeat. It's talking about two situations, two things we have to prevent. In other words, that you shouldn't come to do a sin. Number one is a situation of L'David Hashem Oiri. For many people, they first have to get a clarification of what's right or wrong, and that's enough for them not to do the wrong thing. Then we have another case, Oiri is not enough, enlightenment is not enough, but you need a salvation, you need an intervention, you need Hashem should help you, because just knowing what's wrong is not enough. You need an extra boost, an extra infusion of Yishi to prevent you from doing the wrong thing. We'll explain the Ira and the Efcha later. But then, this is all talking about the first part of David Hashem Oiri Vayeilech Mimi Ira. That's talking about before a person sins. But then the pasuk comes along and it says, Hashem Mois Chayai, that Hashem is the stronghold of my life. Mimi Efchad. The Rebbe takes a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Daf Yud Zayin Amid Beis, where the Gemara says, in the 13 attributes that we say, by Tachnon, and we say in Kippur, we say by davening the whole time, Rosh Hashanah and Slichas, it says Hashem, Hashem, Kil Racham V'Chanan. It says Hashem's name twice. And the Gemara says, Hashem, Hashem, Anihu Koidim Sheyechta Adam. I am Hashem before a person sins, V'anihu La'acha Sheyechta Adam. And I am Hashem after the person sins, V'yasa Tshuva. The simple meaning in the Gemara means that, sometimes there's a couple, and one of them cheated, God forbid. So it was an absolute betrayal of trust, etc., etc. So sometimes a person could say, ain't never going to be the same, in a negative way. And it's understandable. So here the Gemara lets us know, Aniyu koidim shechta adam, I'm the same God before you sinned. Aniyu la'ach shechta adam. In other words, imagine a couple that one side did something wrong and they make a firm resolution. Mistakes happen. We'll never, ever, ever, ever mention this again. And we'll be as loving and connected and intimate and kind and etc. etc. as it was before. So that's the Pashto Pshat in the Gemara. Hashem, Hashem, Aniyu koidim shechta adam, Aniyu la'ach shechta adam. That Hashem says, no matter what you do wrong, you'll be welcomed back with open arms, and everything will be as good as new as if nothing happened. That's a simple meaning. The Rebbe learns Pshat, based on Kabbalah and Chassidus. There's two levels of Shem Havaya. There's Havaya de Le'ela, and there's Havaya de Le'tata. There's a lower level of Shem Havaya, as Kabbalah explains. That's the first level, where it says, L'David Hashem Oiri Vayeilech. That's a lower level, Koydem Achet. But then there's a stronger level of Shem Havaya, Havaya Deleido, which is La'achechet. Why is that a stronger level of Shem Havaya? Because our evil inclination is a genius. First they come along and they tell the person, you know what? Do the wrong thing. So you're going to steal. So you're going to pickpocket. So you're going to shoplift. So you're going to just take your hand, put the switch on Shabbos like that. Whatever it is. He says, what's so bad? There's a lot of worse people. Everybody's doing it. Whatever kind of things he knows how to convince you to do the wrong thing. But once you do the wrong thing, he says, you see, you failed. There's no chance you can go back to Hashem. You're a loser. You think you can just say, I'm sorry, and everything will be forgiven? You're dirty. You're stained. You're lost. Forget it. And then he tries to tell him, just go all the way. Forget it. There's no chance for you to be accepted. There's no chance for you to be seen as a good person anymore. You failed, etc., etc., etc. So over here, and he convinces you because he says, you know what you did? You rebelled against Hashem. That's like the worst thing you could do. He's your creator. He's your benefactor. He gives you life every single second. And you rebelled not only against the king, but you rebelled against the King of Kings. Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's the worst sin that could happen. And the worst thing you could do is to start up with God. You're messing with God himself. And there's the wrath of God, who knows what. So here we have to be told a message which brings out the true infinity of Hashem. Havai Deleido, as Chassidus explains, that Shuva reaches a level in Hashem which is higher than all the other mitzvahs. All mitzvahs, we say, reach in a level called Ratzon, the will. So you have a king, and he has a will, and he says, this is my will. And if you step out of line, maybe you'll be told the first time will be this, the second time this, but then that's it. But with the Eibishter we say, Tshuva reaches a level not only of Ratzon, which is the will of Hashem, but it reaches the level of Baal Ratzon, the master of the will. What does it mean, the master of the will? The master of the will means that he's not limited in his will. That even if a person did the same sin 10,000 times, when it comes to the 10,000th the first time, and he makes a resolution that he will not do it again, he's accepted by Hashem totally, absolutely. And that's what it means that the mitzvah of tshuva reaches the level of Baal HaRatzon. He's the master of his will. He's not limited by the will. He's not limited by the will. He's not stuck. He's not stuck. That if you do this, it'll be good. And if you step out of the line, if you step out of the program, that's the end of you. No. The Eibishter is flexible that even if someone steps out of the program thousands of times, nevertheless, when he returns to the Eibishter accepts him. Only somebody who's truly infinite could act in such a way. And that's why we say in davening also, every single day in Shemon Esrei, it says, Chanan hamarbe l'sleach. Same point, Alter Rebbe explains beautifully. Marbe means in abundance. How much is in abundance? To no end. Hashem forgives to no end. Again, a sign of infinity. What's the number? There's no number on it. Every single time a person did something wrong, every single time he made a mistake, and even if it wasn't a mistake, Hashem is ready to forgive. That's Chanan Hamar B'Losleich. And the same thing the Gemara says over there in Rosh Hashanah, another thing, that, also in the words, Hashem Kel Racham V'Chanan Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed. Again, just like Umar B'Losleich, we say in Shemon Esrei, it says also Rav L'Sleich, which is the same point, that he forgives in abundance. V'Rav Chesed, V'Rav Chesed. The Gemara over there in Rosh Hashanah also says that the word V'Rav Chesed shows that he's abundant in his kindness. So it's not just, Chana Marbel L'Sloach is abundant in forgiveness, and Rav Chesed is abundant in his kindness. Same idea. How much is abundant? Infinite. So now we understand what it means when we say Hashem Moiz Chayai means that is the stronghold of my life. Regular life In other words, it shows on a more powerful level of Shem Havaya. Regular life is through Torah mitzvahs. That means life. But what happens if you faltered in that department? What happens if there was deficiency in that department? What happens if that power source has been diminished by your actions? So then we have to say, we have to come to a deeper level of life force. We have to come to a higher level of Shem Havaya, which will take a person who's down in the dumps, who's stained, who's in the quicksand, who's in the cement, and still be able to pull him out of such a situation and be forgiving. That's the pshat. Hashem moiz chayim. So now let's recap the pasuk, mamish moiridik, that the pasuk is talking about three situations. L'david Hashem moirivi yishi is talking about before a person sins, and in that itself we say there's two situations: either because the person was enlightened, he knew what was right and what was wrong, or because the Eibishter helped him, because he knows the person has a weaker constitution, so the person was helped that he should do the right thing. Because even if you know it's the right thing, not always it is easy to do it. But then there's a situation where a person already sinned. That's the second part of the pasuk, where it then says, Hashem moiz chayai mimi evchad. Okay. The Rebbe explains the difference between Ira and Evchad is based on a pasuk in the end of Parshas Eikev, where the pasuk says that Lo yisatzev ish b'fneichem, no man shall stand before you. Pachdechem u'meirachem yitna Hashem Elokeichem al pnei kol haaretz. And it says that the Eibishter will cast the fear and dread. It calls over here, Pachdechem is fear, u'meirachem and dread. Okay. Anyway, so Rashi over here says, Pachdechem meirachem, v'alei pachad hu meira. It seems like it's the same thing. Ela pachdechem ala krevim, u'meirachem ala choikim. The word pachad is referring to something which is up close, a threat, which is near and close. You understand? Up close and dangerous. So that is pachad. You feel it. It's palpable. It's tangible. And yira is from something that's distant. So therefore it's not so strong. It's not so powerful. The emotion is less of an emotion. So therefore now it makes beautiful sense with this pasuk over here. L'david Hashem moirivi yishi, which is talking about before a person sins. Mimi ira, because sin is something which is further away. So therefore the danger is not so near because he didn't sin. But Hashem moiz chayim mimi evchad is talking about in a case where he actually did a sin. So therefore it's already a real danger. It's already really something that was a mess up and caused damage. So over here we have to know that mimi evchad. To connect it to the parsha, I'm going to say a word that I said already before. By the way, this word that I had from the Rebbe is in Chelik Tes, L'kutei Sichos in the Sicha, and also in the back in the letter. Okay? Now to connect with the parsha, I mentioned this Rashi before because I absolutely love it and I think it's amazing. And it goes together with the beginning, what I spoke today about enlightenment. At the end of Parshas Vayeilech, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Ki yadaiti achrei moisi, I know that after I pass on, Ki hashches tachshisun, I know that after I pass on, then people will become corrupted. V'sartem en haderech asher tzivisi eschem, and depart from the way which I commanded you. So Rashi asks a question on the words, Achrei moisi ki hashches tachshisun, v'arei kol yimei Yeshua le'ishchisu. As long as Yeshua was alive, they didn't become corrupted. So why did it say after I pass away? It didn't happen until after Yeshua passed away. So why did it say after I pass away? So Rashi says, Mikan shel talmidei shel Adam chovev alav ki gufay. From here we see that one's disciple, one's student, is precious to him as his body. Shekol's man she Yeshua chai. As long as Yeshua was alive, Moshe viewed it as if he was alive. So therefore, when he said, I know after I pass on, it didn't mean after I pass on, it means after Yeshua passes on, because as long as Yeshua is alive, I consider it as if I'm alive. Now, what I find extraordinary over here is because Lubavitcher Chassidim, the Rebbe used to always quote, talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe, Ma'azari b'chaim, afu b'chaim. As long as his children are alive, so is he alive. And that's what most people talk about. And it's beautiful. And the Rebbe has layers and layers of meanings and interpretations on what does it mean, Zari b'chaim. But over here, I think there's a different stress, a different emphasis. And in a certain way, it could be even more demanding. Of course, yesh b'zeh ma'ashem b'zeh, yesh b'zeh ma'ashem b'zeh. But what does he say here? Mikan shel talmidoi shel odom chovev olav kigufei. The disciple, the student of the master considers as if he's still alive as long as he has a student. Now, why is that a different emphasis? Because you can have a chassid, a follower. What's a good chassid? Does a good chassid have to know every word of Torah that his Rebbe said? No. He knows some of them. He lives with a few of them. He follows the ways of whatever his teacher said, the Rebbe said. Whatever the Rebbe said to do, he follows those instructions. That makes him a chassid, a follower, a makusha, someone who's very close. Then you have a child. How many times do you have a father who's a Rosh Yeshiva, a great, great genius Torah scholar, and none of his children are Torah scholars? They have a deeper connection. It's not about Torah knowledge. It's essence to essence, without any nothing else has to add. Nothing. We don't have to add anything to essence. A child's a child. A child inherits everything, etc., etc. But being called a child of a parent is not the same as being called a disciple or being called a Talmud Muvak. And the main difference is where? In enlightenment. It could very well be that a child doesn't have the light, the ideas, the concepts that the father cherished, the insights. You understand? But if he's a disciple, then he must have it, because then he's not a disciple. That's the whole idea of a disciple, the whole idea of a student. Like he says over here, Talmidei shel Adam. So why, again, we see how important enlightenment is. We're not taking away anything from Zari B'chaim. We're not taking away anything from Chassid. We're not taking away anything from parent-child relationship. What we are saying is that a Talmud, a disciple, is much more of a stress of the enlightenment of the teacher. The ideas live on only in a student. And over here, this Maimon Azal says that Moshe Rabbeinu, as long as Talmidai was alive, he looked at it as if he was alive. So there's another place where the Rebbe speaks about Rosh Hashanah as the head of the year, and he says that it's a time where we connect with Rosh B'nai Yisrael. So let's remember also the idea of Rosh is head. It's the head of the year. Let us make resolutions in our head. We could say today people like to talk about breath work. I think it's time that we start talking about brain work. My friends, L'chaim, L'chaim, it should be a year full of brain work to give us more enlightenment and greater enlightenment and deeper enlightenment, which will bring to change of behavior and change of character, all in a good way. And obviously this is the connection to Shabbos Shuva. Shabbos Shuva means that it's the highest level of Shuva, and Chassidus explains that Shabbos is Avodas HaMoichen. What means Moichen? The Avodah of intellect, which means going inward. There's the serving Hashem the whole week is the way we're dealing with things of the world, like where the world poses a threat. But then there's Shabbos returning inward and upward. So it's mental activity, mental spiritual service of Hashem. That's what it means Avodas HaMoichen, brain work. So the tshuva of Shabbos tshuva is coming to higher insights and higher levels of connection to Hashem from the enlightenment. And so it's a higher level of tshuva. It's not that we're discussing that we did something wrong in action. It's talking about coming to greater, deeper, higher insights, which automatically means we come more connected to Hashem. Yichud, a yichud, mikol tzarapina. Good Shabbos. It should be a wonderful year on every single level, no exceptions, in all areas of your life. Posting from the Rebbe Shchuna. Good Shabbos. And this is also my thought for Yom Kippur. Mashiach now.